Writers Group Halloween 2016, Part A, by Ivan M. Bridgewater, Jr. It had been a long, hot summer. The weather had just begun to cool off, but it was still warm outside as John stepped into the room where the local Writers Group meetings were held and waved at the people seated there. Dana, the group's moderator, looked up when John walked in and observed, "We were starting to wonder if you would be here tonight." "I kind of had to be here," John responded in a heavily stressed voice. "I'm having trouble with a book and need the group's help." The room went dead silent, and Dana quickly said, "We still haven't forgot the last time you read at Halloween. You're not going to get us all blown to some other universe, are you?" "I hope not," John noted in a hushed voice. "This is a different kind of problem. I really need your advice." "What's the problem?" asked a writer named Lana. "Just stop right there," Dana asserted loudly. "The last time John read at Halloween, things got a little out of hand." A writer named Richard asked, "How bad could it get?" "It can get scary as hell," asserted a writer named Kat. "If John is going to read, I'm leaving." "You're kidding," Richard asked, obviously incredulous. At that moment, Dana's husband, Hal, stepped into the room saying, "I heard what you were telling the group. What's the problem, John?" "I'm having a problem with a character in a book," John explained in a rush of words. "I can't seem to kill them off." "I have that same problem," a person new to the group acknowledged, smiling slightly. "I get attached to them and hate to kill them off." "No, I really can't kill them off," John moaned. "She's a ghost and just keeps coming back." "I get the feeling you don't mean in the book," Dana observed. "What have you gotten yourself into this time?" "I wrote a story about a ghost," John replied. "Now she's haunting me." "You mean the ghost in a story you wrote has come to life?" Hal asked thoughtfully. "No, she's not alive. She's a ghost," John blurted out loudly. "She's dead and she won't leave me alone." "That's ridiculous," Richard exclaimed. "No, it's not," Kat noted loudly as she moved for the door to leave. "I was here the last time John read at Halloween. I'm not waiting around to see what happens this year." Several other writers in the group stood to follow her. At that moment, the ghostly apparition appeared in the doorway. Everyone who had been leaving now moved to get away from the front door. Right behind them floated the spirit as John dropped into a chair and began to sob, loudly explaining, "I didn't know what else to do. She appeared about a week ago and I've been scared to death ever since." The ghost floated there before the group for an instant and then whispered the word, "Death." It sounded almost gleeful. The entity was transparent. You could only see the face in glimpses. It was obvious it was a woman, or had been long ago. Her head almost touched the ceiling, but if she hadn't been floating, she would have seemed short. "I'm going to be forced to ask you to leave," Hal noted. "We run a nice, respectable place, and creepy ghostly figures aren't welcome in our establishment." The ghost turned slightly to face Hal, but made no move to depart. Then a hissing sort of laugh began to issue from the creature. Abruptly, a woman's voice issued from the floating form saying, "Now you must all join me. Join me in death." A writer named Drew loudly announced, "I think I'll pass on that," and started toward the back door. The hissing laugh issued again from the ghostly figure as Drew and several other writers in the group realized their escape was cut off. The back door wouldn't open despite the frenzied attempts of those frantically trying to escape. Confusion filled the room as the different writers reacted in various ways. Most backed as far away from the apparition as possible, but that wasn't more than a few feet at most. A loud screeching scream emitted from the levitating vision, and blood began to drip from the entity's fingers as it floated before them. "Hal," Dana yelled. "She's bleeding on my brand new rug. Do something." Hal looked up at the ceiling and yelled, "Samuel, I need your help." "Who the hell is Samuel?" a writer named Mark demanded. "That would be me," an eerie voice responded from the ceiling, speaking with a slightly southern accent. A second floating figure materialized directly next to Hal and looked down on the now crowded room. "I tried to tell you," Kat yelled. "Every time he reads at Halloween, these meetings go straight to hell." Several people in the group instantly began to cry, openly sobbing. "Shut up!" the ghost named Samuel roared. He seemed to collect himself for a moment and then continued asking, "Why have you brought me here?" "One of our writers is having trouble with a ghost," Hal explained, waving at the other spirit floating before them. "Is he a ghost writer?" Samuel asked. After a moment he began chuckling loudly, but Hal wasn't pleased. "I need your help," Hal noted sternly. "That thing is scaring some of these folks and disrupting our writers' meeting." "A whole room full of writers and you can't come up with an ending for a ghost story?" Samuel inquired. "You call me back for this?" "You all must join me," the first ghost screamed abruptly. Even Samuel flinched slightly. I'm going to call for Gralto, John yelled, appearing hysterical. He'll help us. Don't do it, Dana, Kat, and Hal all screamed in unison. Who is Gralto? Richard demanded loudly. Stop saying that name, Hal commanded, looking around nervously. This just keeps getting worse, Kat noted loudly to nobody in particular. Gralto is one of the old gods, Drew blurted out, seemingly answering Richard's question. We accidentally called him. In mid-sentence, Drew was cut off. There was a clap of thunder, and the great god Gralto appeared in the room. Why have you called me here? Gralto demanded. Didn't you have your fill the last time we met? I need your help, John screeched loudly. Please save me from that nightmarish ghostly spirit. Gralto looked around the room for an instant before asking, which one? You all must die, the initial ghost in the room screeched. Join me in the long sleep you call death. Kinda stuck on that concept, isn't she? Samuel asked as he remained floating next to Hal. Looking closely at John, the spirit continued saying, you should try to write more depth into your book's characters. I'm not sure how much influence I can have over a ghost in your reality, the great god Gralto informed John. Aside from that, you're not supposed to keep calling on the old gods. We have better things to do than fix your ridiculous, short-sighted problems. Like what? Kat asked. Gralto gave her a stern look but didn't reply. Have you noticed she hasn't really harmed anyone? Samuel asked. In an instant, the ghost hovering above John reached down and lifted him up by the throat till his feet left the floor. Choking, kicking, and generally trying to break free, John gurgled out the word, thanks! How rude, Samuel yelled. I suggest you unhand that man. Your behavior is totally uncalled for. My powers grow stronger as we approach Halloween, the obviously female voice screeched. The spirits are restless this year. They call out for fresh souls to join them. I say, that is rude, Samuel blurted out. A lot of my best friends are spirits, and I have never seen them try to steal anyone's soul. He glanced closer to now almost unconscious John and asked, what kind of ghost do you write about? That appeared to anger the apparition that was holding John. She abruptly let his limp form fall to the floor and hissed, the best kind, a reaper of souls. I open the gates and drag down the weak. I harvest the souls of the lost. I haven't lost anything, Kat informed the threatening figure floating before her, and I'm starting to get tired of your threats. The ghost started to turn toward Kat, and at that moment the disheveled rider she had just dropped staggered to his feet. Leave my friends alone, he gasped. Then it appeared that the floating figure he was addressing reached into his chest and pulled out his still beating heart. For a brief moment the ghost's face seemed to solidify, showing the feral grin of an animal. Then John fell to the floor, obviously dead. Your friends will die screaming, the maniacal voice screeched. Where I come from, we throw you off the riverboat for less than that, Samuel announced loudly. If you're going to actually harm these folks, I'm going to be forced to intervene. You have no power over me, the killer responded. With each passing moment, I grow stronger. Soon the forces of darkness will swallow all your souls. Hal pointed up at a clock on the wall as his hand spun madly. The group's collective gaze followed Hal's hand, and they could all see the time was not behaving as it should. The windows all darkened, and it appeared night had fallen. A howling wind hammered the buildings from the outside, and for just a moment, the entire room seemed to freeze. This story was developed for the writers group of Manatee, Florida. Due to its length, the story has been broken into segments. We hope you will join us at the next writers group meeting for the other half of the story. Thanks. The end.
And happy Halloween.